So without solving this compliance piece at the core, our users will always be an outsider in that sense, relying on risky workarounds. So this primitive is about building this system that natively is trustworthy to the financial world. And secondly, having this sovereign on-chain identity, which acts as our digital passport between the two worlds. It provides the regulated system, or proves to the regulated system, that the owner of the wallet and the address is the same person who holds the bank account. And eventually, this will be a key for UR to unlock real-world financial benefits and services based on your on-chain life. Now, thirdly, of course, is liquid composable fiat. Right? Of course, we understand the existence of stablecoin, but fiat as a concept right now is a dead asset within Web3. So tokenized deposit, composable fiat that we have is being able to allow us to make fiat smarter by representing this real-world currency as a fully backed token on Mental Network, and becomes another building block in all of our DeFi stack. And lastly, the direct access to global payment. I think this fourth pillar is also going to be very important for us when we think about being able to spend your on-chain assets. So even if you manage to off-ramp funds, spending them in the final mile, it's always a hurdle. And a lot of crypto cards these days, we know, are prepaid programs with many middlemen, having delays, unreliability. So this primitive is also about controlling the entire stack. Having a direct pipe into the global payment system ensures that the last mile of our transaction is as robust and as efficient as it's possible. So these are the four primitives that we have thought of as the key ingredients for us to build UR from the ground up. So maybe now I can let you see and take a look into how we have built them. Next, please. So there are three key bedrock for core regulation and access. And of course, like I said, starting with the most difficult parts. Firstly, having a FINMA license from Switzerland, operating as a Swiss regulated financial institution, this is the bedrock of compliance that makes everything else possible moving forward. And with MasterCard, as I mentioned earlier, we're not just a card reseller, we are a principal card member. So what this means is then being able to control the entire payment stack and offer direct, reliable access to global payment rails. And of course, lastly, is being Tier 1 clearing bank connected to the SWIFT and SEPA network, which allows us to provide users with seamless access to the global banking network. Next. And when we combine these primitives and the bedrock that I've just mentioned, the walls between on-chain and off-chain disappears over time. And it doesn't really matter where businesses and individuals choose to live and choose to hold their assets. There is now freedom to choose where we want our financial gravity to exist and how we want assets to move. So this financial operating system on Web3 is what UR is, and very happy to say that all of this is built on Mental Network, the blockchain for banking. So Tim, maybe to you, if there are any questions, we can talk about it a bit more.
Yeah, I love that. I think there are two key pieces here, right? Really quick on here. I'm always trying to explain it in a very easy way to understand just how revolutionary this experience is to have a unified account where your fiat and crypto can sit together, right? You know, maybe one example is before mobile phones were a thing, you always had to go to a phone booth to make a call on someone. Now, without even thinking about it, we can pull out our phone and send a text. That seamlessness of being able to communicate without thinking about the friction in between, and that journey is collapsed into almost like an instantaneous moment. That's what we're gunning for right here. And the second piece is, if you go to the slide with our bedrock, I think it's super important to harp on the fact that, look, a lot of builders in the space today are DeFi and crypto native. You ask them what is a principal membership, they don't understand. You ask them what Swift and SEPA rails are, maybe they understand if they're in the stablecoin side. The key is, look, to play a game of onboarding the next billion users, right? It cannot be a trading, speculative brokerage type of experience. It has to be through something that they understand today, such as everyday payments. And to do that, you have to play ball with the existing institutions and infrastructures that exist today. So I think, from what I hear, it was very tricky and challenging, but super awesome that you guys are able to pull off this type of integration with our existing global traditional rails. I think hats off to you guys. Super impressive. Let's jump straight into the glimpse of what the product looks like. Let's get the first looks.
Yeah, so I think the first thing, again, being regulatory compliant, of course, there are certain requirements on KYC on onboarding that we have to impose, right? But of course, from a user experience perspective, we try to make this as seamless as possible. For example, having a 2-click sign up process, you can sign up just as you do with any Web2 application. I don't think this should be the hurdle anymore within Web3, and it's no longer. So having gone through that, then going through a KYC process that probably takes you 5 to 10 minutes, gets you ready with a Swiss IBAN, multi-currency account, and a MasterCard debit card. So I think this kind of is a very good opening or a good start to anyone trying to get into UR.
Yeah, this form factor, I absolutely love it. In a past life, I was a VC. We invested in Nubank out in Latin America. This is almost that Nubank moment where previously in Latin America, you had all these brick and mortar banks. They didn't really have mobile apps. It was very clunky. It was hard to move your money. And then Nubank came out and just swept the entire continent and took over, right? And here, this doesn't even look like a crypto app. This is very Web2 Revolut front facing in terms of UI UX. It's it's very easy to intuitive to understand from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, maybe if we move into the next slide, we can showcase a bit more on the core value of UR. So of course, when we think about having a bank account, we think about how do you charge your account, how do you top up your account. So there are two main ways. Obviously, the most popular way is via crypto. So having, let's say, USDC that we now support on 4 networks, Ethereum, Mantle, Base, and Arbitrum, you are able to then deposit USDC and choose to get the fiat tokenized deposit or the fiat of like US dollar, euros, Swiss franc, and so on. So this kind of allows you to then think about what you want to do next with the fiat. For example, paying via MasterCard to all MasterCard accepting merchants, or perform bank transfers out to third-party bank accounts for whether it's your bill payment, whether it's traditional brokerages where you want to diversify your portfolio, even from a business perspective, thinking about how you can eventually use this as a payroll management tool. I think these are all possibilities with this kind of primitive setup.
Brian, what do you think is exciting about this from your perspective, having seen some of these products in the last couple of cycles across the industry?
Yeah, for me, it's the seamlessness of everything, particularly the experience once you've made the deposit into UR, right? One of the challenges in crypto is being connected to the right network, is having point of sale systems at the till, having card networks be integrated with different networks, having the right assets on the right network. And here you make your deposit into UR, and that becomes entirely seamless within the UR experience. So whether you're making a payment at the till, at a register, at a coffee shop, or you're sending EOA to EOA to another wallet, P2P payments. It's just super seamless. You remove a lot of the friction. You remove a lot of like the 2-3 step processes and a lot of the confusion around crypto. And it's you still have this self-sovereign finance ideology powering all of it, right? Like you are sovereign over your assets, but you get the comfort of understanding the neobank experience, something that is quite familiar to you if you're not crypto native or crypto curious even, right? If you are a normie, using that term very endearingly.
Yeah, I also want to draw a quick clarification point here. YZ, I believe this is available for everyone except OFAC sanctioned countries and the US. Is that correct? But we are rolling out mainly in Asia first. Is that it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I mean, the experiences are very different in terms of pain points as well as what is deemed a 10x better experience, right? For Westerners, our banking rails are good enough. For folks in Asia, Latin America, it feels like this is a step change in terms of their ability to move money across borders, settle across different currencies. Edmund, Sohan, Yashi, what's your experience with trying to do this in the traditional way of fintech applications today versus what do you guys expect from something like this?
I can talk about it. I've been using UR for a while. So first of all, I think it doesn't have too much features at the moment yet. I think that we only have the basic one, which is like deposit and spend, right? But I think it's enough. I want to talk about a recent experience that I was in Hong Kong and I just opened a new Hong Kong, like a new bank. And then I just realized how good is UR, because like when you open a new bank, it only changed the experience of UX, right? It's convenience compared to traditional bank, but it doesn't like escape from the traditional bank rail. For example, I opened an account and I tried to deposit money into a Hong Kong dollar. It actually waited me 2 days because because I was sending from the DBS Singapore of Hong Kong dollar to a Hong Kong bank in Hong Kong, which means at the weekend they are not working unless you are sending from a DBS in Hong Kong. So these are the complications from the traditional bank, which I didn't realize. But when I was using UR, I was like, I just deposit crypto. Crypto is 24-hour, 24/7. So I deposit crypto, I can spend in the store right away already. But by open another new bank, it only solve the user experience issue, but it doesn't solve the basic issue. Like a Web3 banking is more than user experience. It can do much more things because of the stablecoin innovation, right? In the traditional asset movement or payment, your information flow and your asset flow are separate. So most of the time, your information flow arrive first, but you don't get a settlement. The settlement takes like 1 day or 2 days because it's stuck with the bank settlement. But with stablecoin, your information flow and your asset flow are actually combined. So whenever you deposit crypto into the application, right away it become fiat. You don't need to go through all the settlement from the bank. This is the like fundamental change, I think. Just from the experience, of course, I don't feel UR has a lot of functions compared to bank or even centralized exchange. There's a long way to go, but I see this product has a soul. It has something like very unique. Like it's because it's built on blockchain. It's just like some new innovation. You see the lighthouse there, but it takes time to navigate and to find the path. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned because banks don't work over the weekends. Imagine trying to get your finances over the weekend, but it's 2 out of 7 days where it doesn't work. It's like, it doesn't sound bad, but if you translate that to say Wi-Fi, right? If your Wi-Fi doesn't exist for 2 out of 7 days, that would be the end of it. So I think people don't understand just how painful that is until they actually experience it. I want to talk about something that Yashi mentioned, which is, this concept of moving towards banking services. Look, this ties into the title of this event, Blockchain for Banking. And Yashi, I think you coined this. What does that mean? What's exciting about it? How do you see UR fitting within this broader concept? More importantly, how does that elevate Mantle Network into this concept?
Okay, I think a bank sit on blockchain. Why is it different from a traditional Web2 bank? Again, to follow the previous conversation, Web2 bank increase your experience, but Web3 bank, it's like bank as a protocol. So it's like, imagine we are very familiar with all the Web3 protocols, right? Think about MetaMask, think about Uniswap. It's always like plug and play. But if you think about traditional banks, even it's a centralized new bank with the best experience, but can you imagine you plug that capability into another business? It's almost impossible because the data and the system is all centralized, and it requires a huge amount of work on the APIs, SDKs, a lot of work, right? So you can't say, okay, now Revolut, can you provide your banking capability into my business, right? It's like different thing. But with that Web3 banking, actually possible because you actually a product combine few capabilities. One is the core banking capability, which means the license layer and the treasury layer and the risk control, everything like fiat layer, and also the financial services layer and also the blockchain layer. It's like a modular service. You can plug and play your capability into another business. Imagine a wallet in Latam or South Africa. Just plug in your product. Basically, they have the banking capability. They can serve the onboard people to bank the millions or hundreds millions of people in the unbanking regions, which in the traditional bank, you just have to go there and then build a business. I mean, it's something like very different. It's like banking as a protocol in a modular way. So again, I think there's nothing you can copy in the market. It's definitely a new thing and a revolution. You just need to find your own way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think because it's built from first principles with blockchain and the global traditional rails in mind, we're able to, well, Wisey's done the hard work on stripping these modular pieces down to their core primitives so that they're seamlessly, plug and play anywhere we go. And I think this caters to this vision of, okay, blockchain for banking that changes the tune of Mantle Network, right? Mantle Network now becomes this holistic infrastructure that is focused on providing the best experiences for all UR users. Brian, do you want to chat a bit more about where you see this vision heading?
Yeah, for sure. At the top of this year, so 2 live streams ago, we had announced breaking into different business units, and in so doing, Mantle Network deeming itself liquidity chain and angling itself a little bit more aggressively towards on-chain finance. And I think directionally, that has brought us a lot of success, and I think that we are set up for even further success here. Zooming out from there and sort of like talking about the blockchain space a little bit more generally to make the point here, I think in 2023, particularly towards the end of that year into 2024, we saw a lot of layer 2s develop, right? Use whether it was OP Stack, Arbitrum Orbit, Polygon CDK, ZK Sync Stack, to stand up their layer 2s and provide a general purpose experience and build out use cases across the spectrum of an entire ecosystem. And I think in so doing, a lot of these chains failed to develop a raison d'etre, a reason for being, a real North Star strategy that they could pace towards, and moats to set up and experiences to be built more purposefully. And I think in looking at the component parts of Mantle Network, looking at the other BUs, looking at our strategic partners from Marana through Bybit, and looking at our wider ecosystem, and now the tip of the spear being the UR experience. If you want to experience on-chain finance, particularly on Mantle Network, though the user of UR doesn't even need to know much about blockchain to actually use it, that's all happening in and around Mantle Network. It's a little bit more vertically opinionated. It's a little bit more purposefully driven. That being said, we have a tremendous and robust ecosystem across all verticals and use cases. We remain a permissionless and open protocol. We have an amazing grants program for builders that are cutting across all layers of innovation across different use cases. And we continue to BD those efforts and put forth DevRel across those efforts. But it's really like being a little bit more vertically opinionated that gives us our cutting edge and advantage in the market.
Yeah. When you talked about other folks in the space, I'm curious, Yashi, from your perspective on the investment side, what else do you see in the space? Where are some trends? What's interesting? How are we skating ahead of that?
For me, I think it's still around financial services. To use blockchain for the innovation. Like if you see a lot of news or talking to the banks, right, like JP Morgan or HSBC, BlackRock, all of these, they are all exploring digital assets. Like in the stable size, asset size, they are exploring different like CBDC, stable coins, and also tokenized deposit. I think JP Morgan is already experimenting tokenized deposits to use that to settle between different banks. That's also relate back to UR. UR also use the tokenized deposit. Right now it's permissioned, right? If you think about the tokenized deposit can be used as collateral in the exchange or used as collateral in the Aave in the that basically means like whatever your assets sitting in the bank, it can be integrated with all the financial services. JP Morgan used tokenized deposit to do the cross-banking settlement. So I think this is one interesting thing. The other is I think in the payment. So for local payments, especially in the more advanced regions like China, US, I don't think payment is a big issue. There's Alipay, there's a lot of financial apps, so every government is serving it. But anything related to cross-border payments, that involve a lot of banks and efforts. I think I see a lot of innovation too. Because like stablecoin is good, but a lot of the business or merchants, they don't know how to use stablecoin. They still require a lot of services like OTC, like custodian, like a bank, right? So there's a lot of parts business you can create based on the new needs of cross-border like payment services. Also on the asset side, I see a lot of like tokenized equity. Even the big banks also do tokenize the bonds, tokenize the other stuff. So I think this is the first move, which means there's entrepreneurs. They come from the innovation side, like us, like other people who understand and who can be more flexible to try. There's also big ones, giant companies also put a lot of resource doing it. So eventually, I think the two sides will meet somewhere. But these are all very interesting and clear to me that we are getting more clear regulation. We are getting more clear use case. We are going there, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And to tie it all together, there's a nicer little diagram in our letter to token holders that we shared yesterday. Essentially, look, the DeFi and fiat systems are very disparate. They're fragmented all over the place. We put all of that into one unified experience, a box almost called UR. And what happens is in the future, all the transactions, activities that happen there will settle onto the Mantle network, right? That boosts Mantle network becoming this blockchain for banking. And then all those activities will ultimately trickle down to value for our token holders. So I think we're at the halfway point. So let's throw up the QR for a POAP for joining this AMA. Let's give about 30 seconds. While we wait, I'm curious. During the teaser, YZ, we saw a cute little dinosaur. Tell us a bit more about the history behind this. Is it the mascot? Is it just something fun?
That's a very cute question. We care a lot about the product and the brand, right? So obviously with UR, a very unique name. We had a lot of variations, iterations on the brand, on the logo. One of the iterations, the R looked like a dinosaur, which now, once you see it, you can't really unsee that. So we thought, why not just expound on that and then go even deeper, create some soul, some character to UR as a brand. So actually, a few people we spoke to at Cannes recently at ECC also shared that sentiment. Like somehow independently, they were like, "Oh, that looks like a dinosaur." So I think that's kind of like growing. Maybe it's gonna be gonna have its legs on its own.
Yeah, it's nice. There's also a emoji, I think, right, of a dinosaur. Yeah. So easily share it. Great. Let's jump into the next section, which is an updates on Mantle Network. So, look, I think there's been a tremendous amount of updates on Mantle Network, right? There's a lot of technical progress. Brian, take us through what have been some of those in the last quarter. What's the state of the network? And you talked a little bit about the Lightning grants, but tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the purpose behind the architecture is to make ourselves on par or equivalent with other technologies that have passed procurement with larger institutions, right? These are longer leads to work with these institutions. You're required to kind of like look and feel like that which they're comfortable with from a compliance perspective and from a relationship perspective. So a lot of the upgrades and a lot of the performance that we're driving towards on the network is with that in mind. So we've made a lot of tremendous improvements over the course of last quarter. We have more improvements coming. One of which is our relationship and partnership with Succinct, the ZK VM. Our SP1 integration is imminent. That will be going live likely in Q3. The idea here is to bring down finality under 1 hour. ZK VMs are step functionally increasing their performance seemingly every week at this point, and bringing down finality from 7 days, which is the optimistic rollup standard for withdrawals and state confirmations on Ethereum, settling on the L2 to the L1. Bringing that down to 1 hour is something that we need from a protocol architecture perspective to be relevant and to be on par with other competitors who are working in the institutional space, and also just moving away from economic security and more towards cryptographic security for the network. Second, in Q2, Ethereum underwent the Petra upgrade, which was a pretty tremendous upgrade. Again, in trying to be as Ethereum equivalent and compatible as possible. This was something that our engineering team and our product team was very focused on in Q2, particularly EIP 7702, which basically lets regular EOA wallets behave like smart contracts, like smart wallets. This is a huge unlock for programmable automation. So in standing up our Mantle X BU, there's this really interesting intersection between AI agents someday being able to use these smart contract wallets to manage portfolios, execute trades, use gas abstraction tools like relayers, and just find the easiest path with the least amount of friction for users. And then finally, we've talked about this in past live streams, our partnership with Eigen, moving to Eigen DA last quarter as our data availability layer, giving us more or a higher throughput at a lower cost, making Mantle a very viable place for those use cases that we're looking to develop, high frequency trading, payments, large scale applications, breakout apps. The idea here is to like smooth out the gas experience, DA being a huge part of the costs in gas. So when you reach peak activity, making sure that is low. And also devs love that because they can actually cost out their dApps a little bit more smoothly and not have to worry too much about gas spikes. So when you kind of put it all together, it's ZK-based trustlessness, the finality idea here being on par and being a little bit more appropriate for institutional adoption, programmable wallets with EIP 7702, and just scalable infra in general being more purpose-built for banking and the use cases that we're pushing forward. Tim, you also mentioned on the grant side of things, the Lightning grants. Please do visit Lightning grants. I believe it's lightning.mantle.xyz. I'm not exactly sure. We'll pull that. I know L. Brian is working overtime in the chat right now. So L. Brian, if you could just throw that up. My name, brother. 2 Brians here. Really, the fastest, easiest, and most frictionless way to get funded, to bootstrap yourself and get launched on Mantle Network. The DevRel team, the BD team work together on this and really looking to pour a lot of gas on it and launch a lot of projects in Q3. So yeah, take a look and apply.
Fantastic. So we just covered UR and how that unifies everything within the Mantle ecosystem to a seamless experience. We talked about how the Mantle network is everything settles on Mantle network, which is now blockchain for banking. Let's deep dive a bit more into what's inside the box in UR. More specifically, what can you do inside, right? How are we tying together our native assets within BTC, ETH? How do we tie in the RWA narrative? So Sohan, and then you guys run different parts of the pillars with ME protocol, MI4. Tell us a bit more in terms of how the growing role of Mantle native assets and RWAs and how that ties in with the UR and what that ultimately looks like.
Ed, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the echo on your side is pretty loud, so yeah, I think the UR basically is a gateway for us towards the traditional payment rails in TradFi. So I think this opens up a lot of different windows for us. We see that for RWAs, there's an increasing trend of offering like bringing stocks over to on-chain. We have like Kraken, Bybit, and various different teams, even Bigget, or jumping on this bandwagon of tokenizing stocks, offering equities on chain. And I think this trend will likely continue to grow. And I think having this platform, you are to be able to bring on both on-chain users as well as users who have yet to come on-chain. They just want to have the first exposure to crypto. They want to pass their fiats towards to a platform to actually access both crypto as well as tokenized assets, RWA. They can do so through UR. So basically, UR is very well positioned to actually be the intersection point between TradFi as well as on-chain Web3 users. And because of our unique position, I feel that users who actually use UR, they can access both different kinds of yield, from having access towards a DeFi ecosystem. You can have access also traditional tools in the future, probably through investment vehicles that can be offered through UR. But I think this is something that is further down the line that can be considered, because I think at the start, the features will be more focused around on and off ramps and payment rails. But it's basically all these different possibilities that we have and that we can continue to build on UR that makes it very exciting. You basically have a blank slate and you have the first mover in terms of like bringing all these payment rails to the blockchain and having all these different composable elements that are on the blockchain that you can offer to the different users. And along with that, you have a whole suite of different products within our ecosystem. You have METH, bringing yield from ETH towards the users. You have FBDC, BTC. We have a EVM version of BTC that you can offer to users, and you also have like Mentor L2 with all the various different dApps on the chain itself. And now we have also the innovation arms like Mentor X that is focusing on bringing AI towards the chain, and also to incubate our AI projects to improve the user experience. So I think all this comes together very cohesively and allows users to have a very holistic experience through UR.
Yeah, I think one thing that's very exciting is, a lot of folks have innovated around being able to borrow or have credit collateralized by ETH and or BTC. Is that a world that we can build towards with METH as part of UR? What could that look like? And then any initial thoughts, any teasers you can give us, share visions?
I think for sure that is something that we can look forward to, but I think it will come in steps. I think firstly, we have to focus more on the stablecoins adoption first for UR, but I think further down the line, using METH on UR as collateral, and also possibly other forms of interactions, maybe in DeFi vaults, and also or access to DEXs, RFQ swaps are so some things that will be looked into. But I think it will be a natural progression of offering simpler services first that users can easily identify with and access, and then scale up the difficulty of this services that we offer to the users and allow them to have a wider exposure towards the DeFi ecosystem.
Yeah, that makes sense. The whole goal here is let's take the best of DeFi, extract away all the complexities, friction, the lack of security in certain areas, and just make it one click. I always like this phrase, one click and easy to access. Solon, tell us a bit more about MI4. You guys have made incredible strides in going to market with that product. How does this tap into the narrative of RWAs with respect to Mantle, but also what does it mean for UR?
Yeah, so I would view MI4 as the investment side of the business. So when you are depositing in UR, you have crypto assets, you have fiat. The first thing you need is, look, I have this asset, I want yield, right? So you go to what Ed just talked about. You go for some kind of yield enhancement, maybe some borrowing, maybe lending, but you want some yield on that asset. After a while, like if you just look at what you as a user needs, you want investment products, right? You don't want to be like, oh, this I get a few percent, right? You want somebody who will, you want exposure to something, right? It might be MI4, right? Diversified basket of crypto. You want the upside of crypto doubles next year. You want some participation in that for your investment products. If you might want, what Yashi just mentioned, tokenized equity, right? You might want some exposure to NVIDIA, right, in your portfolio. So I think the way it works is right now all of our business lines is like, Ed's is like yield enhancement side, mine is the investment side, but all of these are part of a bank like app, right? Like if you really think about it, like if you open up your TradFi traditional bank, like it has payments, it has like deposits or like a yield, right? Time deposit, and it has investment. So yeah, in terms of MI4, I mean, we launched a couple of months ago. It's doing well. We're at almost $200 million, and the next step for us is really to crack the traditional finance, people, right? Like because the way that we engage is that we kind of just we view success as getting crypto natives into this, but really the next success of this is we are trying to get everyone into this, right? So it's just for this particular product, yeah, we need basically everyone who wants exposure to crypto to not go to some very simple ETF. They should go to some diversified basket with staking yield, which is exactly what MI4 is. So we are right now the largest tokenized fund out there, which is not a T-bill fund. So it's looking good, but the next step for us is really to get into the few hundred millions and then the billions.
Makes sense. And beyond just this single product, anything you can share with respect to, okay, I come into UR, there are yield products, there are investment products. What else can folks anticipate on the investment side? Any not any specific product, but directionally or vision on what can come to market? Whether you guys build it or other folks are building.
Yeah, so I think sorry, is my yeah, okay. So it's I think what's interesting is that right now what's hot is tokenized equity, right? Like it just seems like everyone wants like Bitcoin volatility is 40, like Nvidia is much multiples of that, right? So it's definitely like people may view it as like Nvidia is bigger than Bitcoin in market cap, right? So it definitely makes sense for people to kind of have that as an investment product. I think people want more managed products like out there, right? So MI4 is a index fund, it's a passive fund, right? Like it gives you beta, but I think increasingly people are coming to the view that look, you want alpha, like you can't be like picking the next meme which 10x's to that can't be your way of making money, right? Like you want your hard-earned savings, your hard-earned money to somebody smart to manage it and you do something with it. So I think the next product that we launch will either be going into like the equity world. I think that's one route. The second route is into alpha, not beta. But all of these should be available to UR customers, right? Because our product is a 100% like KYC product, right? And this is very seamlessly able to like funds in general are very easy to mesh with like a bank KYC process because it's all exactly the same.
Yeah, makes sense. And Brian, how does Mantle Network enable liquidity and use case and tie this all together?
Yeah, as I had said earlier, our ecosystem pretty tremendous in terms of the experiences that one can find within the DeFi space, within the RWA space, which we continue to grow. So having those experiences be accessible directly through the UR app, which I'm a bit over my skis here, and I'm sure YZ will slap my hand as that's like a future state. But embedding that into the experience so that you can have those experiences within the app, that is a future state that we think would be a tremendous experience and a differentiator in the space right now.
Makes sense. Tiny back, YZ, what's on the roadmap? What can we expect going forward? What can we anticipate? How do we get updates?
Yeah, I think a lot of public communication will be done, right? So I think we shared this in Q2, and we've been doing this maybe via closer community channels, communicating with our community members, KOLs, just on getting feedback of the product, sharing updates on the product. So moving forward, as we move into the public access phase, which is going to happen in Q3, then we're also going to open up public communications around updates, right? So in terms of what are the items on the roadmap, Ed correctly put up that we focus a lot on core banking infrastructure right now. So being able to enable more currencies, right? And currencies not just in fiat, right? Also in terms of accepting crypto, right? Now we have USDC. Can we enable, let's say, acceptance of USD? I think someone mentioned in the comments, USDT, for example. Then it's really growing that stack on the fiat world and the crypto world so that we can enable more types of currencies being spent, being moved around. That's, I think, top priority. Then naturally with that also thinking about on-ramp, we talked about this before. Now the core flows are all towards the off-ramp side, but thinking about on-ramping, then from that as a starting point, moving into what Sohan mentioned, and getting your crypto to work, right? USDC, now you get opportunities into MI4, for example. You can get into ME as an example. So what we want to look at from UR's perspective across the rest of this year is really thinking about having that core infrastructure, then creating core flows to enable people to move into and out of the space, right? So I think that's a very good mindset to land on for roadmap. But of course, there are going to be changes, and obviously with distribution strategies or go-to-market strategies that we're thinking about, that will shift up and down in terms of priority for what we want to do next. But definitely open to feedback as well. Just I guess as a call out to people in this audience, if there's anything that you want to see on the application, just let us know, and we'll be more than willing to take it in.
Yeah, it's this core flywheel, right? A lot of products today are essentially one-way off-ramps, but as you mentioned, enabling that on-ramp piece would help folks have this more holistic experience instead of, solving for one piece of the puzzle. So that's very exciting. Edmund, what are you most excited about in next quarter?
Hopefully, for UR to slowly integrate DeFi components. Yeah, I think that will, for me, will be the most exciting. I'm not sure whether it'll be done by this quarter. Hopefully, it is, and but I think like for this quarter generally, have the rise of the RWS will be something very interesting to watch, to see how all these tokenized stocks actually work, and then also to see how the chains actually integrate and adapt towards this new paradigm whereby traditional stocks is actually coming on chain and being accessible to all the users. I think that is something very exciting to me.
Sohan, similar vibes or something different?
I think for me, I mean, outside of what we're building, right? I mean, the market is in a very interesting spot, right? I mean, it's we're at historic highs in crypto and in Bitcoin, and like any kind of breakout here, I think just like makes our entire world very interesting, right? Because I mean, let's say the Fed starts cutting, like the world we've had 3 years of trauma in some ways, right? Like definitely last 6 months, it's not been smooth sailing, right? We started pushing the top, then there's been tariffs, then Iran, like all of this stuff. So I'm kind of just seeing if we can break through, and I think that's very exciting for the entirety of crypto, not just for us.
Macro, good stuff. Yashi, what do you see? What's exciting? What do you anticipate for next quarter?
Next quarter, I think next quarter I want to see Mental on board the tokenized equity. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
Brian, and I like to see UR connect to a centralized exchange to offer services, become the default off-ramp channel for crypto users.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be quite interesting to see if in Q3. Yeah.
Perfect layup for Brian.
It's more like a reverse tomahawk dunk from the 3-point line. No, I'm kidding. It's light work.
Fantastic. I think on my side, look, we've been building towards this vision for the past 2 quarters now. And I think the market and our community, the broader crypto community, is starting to understand how, the way we're looking to build things is let's collapse the friction points. Let's build one unified experience, one seamless, easy to understand form factor. And the sooner the market understands that that's the way things are going, you'll see how far ahead we are in terms of bringing that to market and blending crypto and the real world. Great. So I think we're right at the end here. Not sure we have time for rapid fire questions. Maybe I'll ask one question, just a fun one, as we wrap up here. Why is it called UR? Yashi, legend has it that you coined this name, but please give us some insights. What's the backstory here?
Okay, so I was riding a bike with a cycling friend. I was talking about the vision and the soul of this product. And then he's like, oh, I remember there's an Asian city, which is the original birth of accounting system, which creates the writings, the original finance and accounting, right? So we find out this Asian city is actually called a Ur. It's actually called a Ur and a UR. That's where I do a lot of research, and I find out, wow, that's when people use the playpot to write the names and write the information on it, and which is basically the payments and the banking, right? So I think blockchain is also a ledger. Blockchain basically is an accounting system. Then we refer to back in older days how people does it on the playpot, and now we does it on the blockchain, right, in a different way. So I think it's very interesting to relate back. And it's a clean name. I think I suggested using UR that's to relate back to the old story. Yeah.
No, that's so exciting. And in the letters, there's so many things you can play with it in terms of the way we brand it, etc.
And also, I think another thing, like, I think people really like this because we are actually banking the people as special groups. So people are not well served in a traditional banking system. That's why, like, you are who you are, right? You can be a crypto people, you can be a gaming like streamer, you can be a content creator, you can be Africa, where it's not very like well served in a traditional society ranking system. But you are who you are, right? We're gonna serve you. So I think you are a cool name for that.
Yeah, I love the hashtag community came up with URGMI. So instead of WAGMI, it's you're gonna make it. I think it's absolutely really funny. Fantastic. Thank you everyone for joining us in this another exciting roundtable. We're super excited to give you updates going forward. It's a pleasure for us to be sharing our work with you, the community, and building this vision together. Please, please, please always give us as much feedback as possible. We want to build with you guys as you guys are our core users. And until next time, everyone, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.